In Gotham City, life is hard and unfair. The rich live in luxury, while the poor struggle in dirty, crowded streets filled with crime and garbage. It's a city where people are too busy with their own problems to care about others. In the middle of this uncaring world lives Arthur Fleck, a thin, pale man in his 30s with messy hair and sad eyes. Every day is a struggle for Arthur, who works as a clown. His job involves dressing in colorful costumes and painting his face to entertain people. But deep inside, Arthur feels like his life is a joke. Arthur lives in a small, run-down apartment with his sick and fragile mother, Penny Fleck. The apartment is old, with peeling wallpaper and dim lighting. Arthur loves his mother and takes care of her, but life is hard. Penny spends her days lying in bed and writing letters to Thomas Wayne, a rich businessman she once worked for. She believes Thomas will help them because he's a kind man. Arthur isn't so sure but doesn't question her. Penny always tells him, "You were born to bring joy and laughter to the world." Arthur tries to believe her, but the world treats him like he doesn't matter. Arthur has a strange medical condition that makes him laugh uncontrollably at the worst times. This laughter isn't happy, it's painful and awkward, often making people around him uncomfortable. He carries a small card in his pocket that explains his condition, but most people don't care. Instead, they judge him for being strange. One day, while working as a clown on the street, Arthur is holding a sign that says, "Everything must go," to advertise a store. A group of teenagers approaches him and begins to mock him. They steal his sign and run away. Desperate to get it back, Arthur chases them, but when he catches up, the kids turn on him. They hit him with the sign and knock him to the ground, kicking him repeatedly. Arthur lies in the alley, bruised and bleeding, while the kids laugh and leave. No one helps him. Later, when Arthur returns to work, his boss doesn't believe his story about the kids. Instead, he accuses Arthur of losing the sign on purpose and threatens to dock his pay. At work, Arthur's colleagues treat him like an outsider. One of them, Randall, gives him a gun. "You need this," Randall says. "This city is dangerous, and you need to protect yourself." At first, Arthur refuses, saying he doesn't want trouble, but Randall insists. Arthur reluctantly takes the gun and hides it at home. Arthur dreams of becoming a stand-up comedian. Every night he watches a late-night talk show hosted by Murray Franklin, a famous and charming TV host. Arthur imagines himself in the audience, and in his daydream, Murray notices him, invites him on stage, and calls him a great son. Murray praises him, making Arthur feel loved and important. It's a fantasy that brings Arthur a little joy in his otherwise lonely life. He writes jokes in a notebook and practices them in front of a mirror, but most of the jokes are dark and depressing. His uncontrollable laughter often interrupts him, making it hard to imagine succeeding. One day, Arthur meets his neighbor, Sophie Dumond, in the elevator of their run-down apartment building. Sophie is a young single mother who lives down the hall with her daughter. She smiles at Arthur and jokes about how miserable their building is. Arthur, who rarely experiences kindness, becomes fascinated by Sophie. He starts following her around the city, watching her from a distance. Eventually, Arthur works up the courage to talk to her. To his surprise, Sophie is friendly and even agrees to go on a date with him. Encouraged by this, Arthur decides to perform at a local comedy club. He invites Sophie to watch him, feeling nervous but hopeful. When he gets on stage, Arthur starts his act, but his laughter condition kicks in, making it hard for him to deliver his jokes. The audience looks confused at first, but then they begin laughing. Not because he's funny, but because they find his awkwardness amusing. Arthur doesn't realize they're laughing at him, not with him. Later, he tells Sophie the show went well, and she smiles encouragingly. One night, Arthur is riding the subway home after being fired from his job for accidentally bringing his gun to a children's hospital. He's still wearing his clown makeup, tired and upset. On the train, he notices three wealthy young men in suits harassing a woman. Arthur tries to mind his own business, but his condition causes him to start laughing uncontrollably. The men notice him and ask, "What's so funny?" They approach him aggressively, mocking and threatening him. When Arthur tries to explain, they attack him, punching and kicking him. In a moment of fear and rage, Arthur pulls out the gun that Randall gave him and shoots two of the men. The third man tries to run away, but Arthur chases him down and shoots him as well. Breathing heavily, Arthur runs away from the scene, hiding in a public bathroom. As he stands there, shaking from what he's done, he begins to dance slowly and deliberately. In that moment, Arthur feels a strange sense of freedom and power. For the first time in his life, he doesn't feel like a victim. The news of the subway killings spreads quickly. The media reports that a man dressed as a clown killed three wealthy men. The incident becomes a hot topic in Gotham, dividing the city. The rich see the killer as a dangerous criminal, but the poor view him as a hero, a symbol of rebellion against the wealthy elite. Protests begin to spread, with people wearing clown masks to show their anger at the rich. Arthur, however, doesn't care about politics. He's more focused on how the incident made him feel, powerful and noticed for the first time in his life. Arthur's life takes another turn when he finds a letter his mother wrote to Thomas Wayne. In the letter, Penny claims that Thomas is Arthur's father. Confused and angry, Arthur decides to confront Thomas Wayne to find out the truth. He sneaks into a fancy theater where Thomas is watching a movie with his family. Arthur approaches him and tells him about the letter. Thomas laughs at him and says, "Your mother is crazy. She was in a mental hospital." He tells Arthur that he was adopted and that Penny isn't his real mother. Arthur doesn't believe him, so he visits the hospital where Penny was treated. There, he finds her medical records and learns the shocking truth. Penny adopted him when he was a baby. Her boyfriend abused Arthur as a child, tying him to a radiator and beating him. These injuries may have caused Arthur's brain damage and his laughing condition. Feeling betrayed and angry, Arthur returns home and kills his mother, smothering her with a pillow. Soon after, Arthur receives a call from the producers of Murray Franklin's show. They want him to appear as a guest because a video of his failed comedy act has gone viral. Murray plans to mock him on live TV. Arthur agrees, but begins to plan something far darker. Before the show, Arthur transforms into the Joker. He dyes his hair green, paints his face white, and puts on a bright red suit. He's no longer Arthur Fleck, the sad, lonely man. He's now someone who doesn't care about society's rules. When Arthur appears on the talk show, he walks out confidently, dancing as the audience laughs and claps. At first, Murray and the audience treat him as a strange but harmless guest, but the mood changes when Arthur admits to killing the three men on the subway. He delivers a chilling speech, blaming society for creating people like him. What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him? Arthur asks. You get what you deserve. He then pulls out a gun and shoots Murray on live TV. The city erupts into chaos. Riots break out everywhere, with protesters in clown masks attacking the wealthy and destroying property. Arthur is arrested, but on the way to jail, protesters crash the police car and free him. Standing on top of the wrecked car, surrounded by a cheering crowd, Arthur smears blood on his face in the shape of a clown smile and begins to dance. He feels like he's finally found his place in the world. In the final scene, Arthur is in a mental hospital, laughing to himself. A therapist asks him what's so funny, and he replies, "You wouldn't get it." As he walks out of the room, leaving bloody footprints behind, the story ends.